Well, thank you so much, Meredith, for having a conversation with me.
Of course.
I would love to learn more about your background. I guess the first question is, how did you get into film composing?
So I actually started composing at the age of 10, composing for whatever ensemble I really wanted to at that point. As I got into college, surrounded myself with a lot more film composers, and I was really inspired by what they were doing, but I wasn't quite sure how to get into that.
Hmm.
I've always had this idea that, if my composition works for film, great. If it doesn't, great. I'm just here doing what I love. And if it leads to film composing, it leads to film composing. I'm always interested in trying out new genres and types of media when it comes to my work.
Got it. And how long have you been film composing now?
I think the first time I had something on film was May 2021. So I've kind of been experimenting with different things since then. Of course, my composition wasn't originally for film. I sort of adapted it, but I would say that my first film experience was a little over a year ago.
Okay. So just getting into the space and
Mhm.
trying to establish a footing. What are some of your musical inspirations? Do you have any favorite film composers or musicians that help define you sonically?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've, of course, been a very big John Williams fan.
Hmm.
I love the sort of grandiose, kind of over the top music that he does. But overall, I'm very inspired by like the romantic era of classical music and trying to adapt that to a more modern audience. So I'd say it's kind of a mixture between those two.
Do you have a process for composing your music or writing music in general?
Yeah, I find that it's easier if I start out on staff paper
Mhm.
and then progress to a online notation software, whether it's MuseScore, Finale, Sibelius, whichever one I see fit. Sometimes it takes, 12 hours to finish a piece. Sometimes it takes several years. So I can't say that I fully refined that process, but I do know that I start with staff paper. Once I'm ready, I go on to the notation software and then get it ready for distribution.
Okay, got it. Now you're getting into this career, establishing a footing. What are your career goals? As far as being a film composer or a musician in the future.
I pursued this career because it was one of my passions, and I'm really not looking for much else other than trying to find projects that I'm passionate about,
Mhm.
try to find a career that I love while still being able to give my musical talent to someone who needs it. So
Mhm.
it's just all about that passion for me. I want to love what I do and do what I love.
That's a great quote.
Thanks.
We'll feature that.
Sure.
On that note, what would you say are the top 1 to 2 challenges as a film composer?
Sure. So I think especially as someone as new to this as I am, and especially I just graduated from college, so
Mhm.
I'm also trying to find my footing there as well. I found that a lot of people don't really want, or they would much prefer to work with more experienced composers and sort of leave us newer composers kind of in the dust.
Mhm.
So I think it's difficult to find those paying gigs because nobody wants to work with someone who's brand new. I don't know a lot of people that would trust someone that's brand new. But I don't think we can really get experience as a new composer if we don't get that experience from somewhere, whether it's, from calls for scores or collaborations or whatnot. So it's really hard to find that experience as a new composer, but at the same time, everyone's looking for experience.
Right. What have you specifically done recently to get more experience under your belt, more opportunities to do composing? I'd love to unpack that and maybe learn a little
Sure.
bit more about, yeah, your process for navigating that.
Sure. So since I'm a college graduate, I don't have a lot of contact with a lot of my music major friends who are going into video composing and my other music major friends who are, passionate about multimedia. And so what I've done is I've joined a lot of sites like Compozly where I can reach out to someone remotely and
Hmm.
work remotely. There's a bunch of websites I use. Some are specific for film composing and others aren't. Compozly, Open Call, the Composers site. And since I'm going to graduate school in the fall, I'm not really going to have a lot of time to pursue like more in-person things. I'm looking for something more remote and something that I can balance pretty well with the graduate life. So that's kind of how I'm dealing with things right now, is I'm signing up for all these websites, getting my footing over the summer, and sort of just exploring those new outlets for film composing.
Got it. Makes sense. You had mentioned Open Call and the Composer site. I'm not familiar with those. What is the Open Call?
It's kind of like the Composer site. They're kind of the same thing. It's where people post, like, it's kind of like a blog almost, except there's competitions you can apply for, and here's all the information. There's calls for scores. There's collaborations. And I actually got that first film gig was from when I won a competition on the Composer site. And so I adapted that piece for the film people to premiere because they were highlighting new and upcoming composers like myself. So those websites are valuable, even if, you're not a film composer. There's, someone will post, hey, I've got a video. It's this long. I want to have this style of music. Is there someone who can do that? And they'd usually leave their email or their phone number. And so those also promote collaboration between different types of producers and audio people and composers. So it's kind of how it works. It's like Compozly, except it's more kind of like free reign. You don't really have to sign up, but it is a little bit outdated, which is why I like Compozly more, to be honest.
Oh, okay. This is good. This
Yeah.
is great. This is great information. No, thank you. Do you do a lot of film composing competitions? Like, is that something that is a part of your process in getting more experience?
I think so. I like to take what I have and then sort of adapt it for film, just so I don't spend a lot of time, unless someone wants me to spend a lot of time and create a new piece just for them. Usually if I'm submitting like, hey, here's an excerpt of something I think you'll like. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of my process when it comes to this.
Got it. Diving back into your background, what would you say makes you stand out as a composer or unique, sonically? Curious what you think makes you different than a lot of other composers out there.
Sure. I guess there's a couple answers to that question. And the big one that I'm thinking of right now is that I grew up in playing band, and I grew up playing or singing in choir. And so I'm used to the repertoire of like the classical, the romantic, this sort of tonal kind of era of composing, but I'm adding my own twist to that. So, the same people who are in the concert halls listening to orchestras and the same people who are maybe just learning their first instrument can enjoy my music. So it's all my music's very inclusive, I would say, because I'm taking a little bit from the past, I'm taking a little bit from the future, and I'm sort of modeling it into my own creation. I think one other thing that makes me unique is I did graduate with a degree in music composition and a degree in chemistry, and I'm pursuing nuclear pharmacy. And I immediately go back to the composer Alexander Borodin, who was a chemist. I think that the greatest composers that we know of also kind of had a double life, per se. We think of Charles Ives, who was more well known as an insurance salesman, but his music's still being played today. Borodin was a chemist, and his string quartets are probably his most famous. And, I kind of think, why shouldn't that be me? Why do I have to pick between chemistry and music if I'm really passionate for both?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Fun little fact.
Yeah.
Great. So you had mentioned that you had done one collaboration before. You'd written one piece for film. Could you maybe talk about what you enjoyed about that process? Like, why was it a good collaboration?
Sure. I think it was a good collaboration because we were very open about communication, because I was based here still in Lincoln. I believe it was partially a dance film, so the dancers were in the South, I think, and the person who recorded the actual music live was in Canada, and the whole group putting it together was in Pennsylvania. And so that collaboration, even though we were thousands of miles apart, was really cool. And I was an active part of everything that everyone was doing as the composer. And it gave me a lot of feedback on that piece to make it better suited for choreographers and the instrumentalists and viewers themselves who are watching the whole thing come together. And I think that was really valuable because that was when I just started getting my footing in that sort of genre. And so it gave me a lot of valuable advice to keep going.
Got it. Awesome. Well, last question for you. Do you have any advice for new composers starting out?
I think one thing that I really needed to hear as a young composer is that there is someone out there who wants to hear your music, even though it might not seem like it. I have family members who I haven't spoken to in years say, hey, I just stumbled upon your website and I heard this piece, and this piece. You're really talented. Keep going. I'll be following you. You know, your first fan might be thousands of miles away in, you know, maybe even in a different country, but you just have to keep going to find that audience, even when it seems tough. I think I really needed to hear that when I was younger.
That's great. That's great advice. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. This was really great.
Of course. Well, have a great rest of your day, Meredith, and we'll be in touch. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.